Hey everyone, it's Will, Gamer Dad, with another video for you. So hopefully everyone is enjoying the newest update 2.9.3, and if you didn't catch it, when you start up the game, the banner for WFS aka Right Flyer Studios is a little bit different, so that's interesting to note. Anyways, in tonight's episode of Should You Summon, we will talk about the two newest banners. There is obviously the Fateful as well as the regular version for AS Ometiol, or obviously AS Victor, as well as an extra banner that has come back, which is the Tome of the, Lost Flower or whatever it's called. So I'll bring that up after this. Now, if you haven't already, make sure you like and subscribe to my channel. I really appreciate it. I also do have a Patreon account for those who want to support me that way. So first off, of course, we'll talk about the AS Victor Fateful banner. Again, you only get one shot at doing this. 10% flat chance on the 10th pull. And of course, these are paid stones, guaranteed at least one 5-star on the final pull, and like I said, 10% chance of getting AS Victor. Of course, there is the uprated 0.4 and 0.8 of the 4.5 and 5-star, as well as the normal style respectively for pulls 1 to 9. So actually a pretty good chance of at least getting one form of Victor, if not, the better form or the newer form AS. And being that this is paid Fateful, all the newest units are here: Garambaro, Nakoko, Iasukiya, and so on and so forth. And of course, unfortunately, there's all those filler units, the 3.5s, the 4s, and the bots, Rainbow Sisters, and Knights. And of course, we can go to our normal banner, which is the paid as well as free stones that can be used on this banner. Again, being that this is a dedicated banner for Victor, you do get a 4.5 at 0.4% chance, as well as the normal style at 0.8, as well as the AS style at 0.8. So overall, in any single pull, 2% chance. And obviously on the 10th pull, if you do a 10 pull, which I always recommend doing 10 pulls if you can, you do get an up rate of the 4.5 to get 1.31%. All right, so again, for those who aren't familiar with AS Victor, AS Victor is the, the second iteration of Victor. And if you have Victor, or if you've heard of Victor, you'll know that he is a lightning katana user, and he also does have, or thunder, I guess, and he does have wind as his secondary element. He is primarily used with lots of multi-hits, especially activating Lunatic in the normal style to do multi-hits, and by that increase combo meter during the AF, such that as your combo meter number goes up, it multiplies that number into your DPS, such that as the combo meter goes higher, your attacks from all your main DPS and other units do go higher as well. He also allows for one-turn kills without Melissa. I'm talking the normal style, of course, that can, by boosting the combo meter. And if you watch my 5-star video of the normal style, which I'll link below, you can get a feel for what he can do. Now, back to AS Victor. AS Victor is obviously a very different unit, although it does essentially the same thing. First of all, he is very similar to AS Lily in the fact that he can VC in and activate his Lunatic. Either way, it can only activate Lunatic once per battle, whether or not you VC it in or do the traditional method, which is to press the Lunatic button. Now, the advantage, of course, of VCing in Lunatic is that then you don't really waste a turn other than, VCing him in. And he obviously has abilities which activate on his VC. Not only that, but once he is in Lunatic, when he increases speed 50% on himself, and when he attacks, it inflicts, a status called electricity or static, where it allows your other units to increase combo meter as well. So he essentially, just like his counterpart, the normal style, is really an AF specialist. What his goal is to boost your AF combo meter, allow for many hits during the AF, and in the case of AS Victor, he allows for one super wind attack after the AF is over. And it is a wind type slash attack on all enemies AoE, And depending on how high a combo meter you can get, and the damage, I guess the number that you're looking for is up to 1000% combo meter, you'll get a massive multiplier on that end of turn attack, which can do hundreds of millions or more against units that are at least vulnerable to Wind Slash. Not only that, he does have his spam move, which is a Thunder Slice type slash attack on all enemies AoE times 2. And in Lunatic, it becomes from 2 hits to 4, and they guarantee crit. And essentially, it can, he can stack and stack and stack, and they do more and more hits, especially as you get through more and more rounds. So again, his damage multiplies during the AF. Now, outside AF, I would imagine that you do get the 4 hits. However, you don't get nearly as much damage because, you're just not getting as many rounds to build up these stacks. He also retains some 4-star moves, which is, some minor buffs. Power int plus 20. He's got some slash resistance 25. He also does have a preemptive move that, speed 20 on the enemy, for example, and int 20 on the enemy. Minus, so not bad. And finally, his other 5-star move as the AS is a physical resistance of all party members plus 30% for 1 turn, and power down on all enemies minus 30% for 1 turn. I believe this is a 100% guaranteed move, and it stacks one of these orbs on the user, which allows for that end of AF super attack. Now, 1 turn doesn't work very well. However, when he is in Lunatic, that buff lasts up to 5 turns. So, in terms of Victor AS, my thoughts about him is he is very, very useful during an AF and to help maintain an AF for combo meter. So essentially, if you have a team that needs support in order to build up the combo meter extremely high in order for your DPS to do tons of damage, he is a great unit for you. Not only that, but if you have units such as ES Molina and Melissa, in combination with those two, you can put Victor as your third so that you can get super high combo meters, especially since you got the Flash Strike maintaining the AF bar. You have ES Molina as well as AS Victor doing combo meter, and then you can put in the 4th DPS of your choice, such and so on and so forth. So really, he can really help enhance your team's damage during these kind of 1 and 2 turn AF setups. In terms of his own DPS, like I mentioned before, at the end of an AF, his Wind Tack can essentially shred all enemies, especially those with at least 1 HP stopper. So in that sense, again, adds a level of, technique to your team if you need that. Very similar to Milsha, like I mentioned yesterday, however, obviously much more powerful, and being that it's a wind type attack, you can add additional things like slash resistance debuff on the enemy, wind resistance debuff, and so on and so forth. Now, in terms of his drawbacks, now I don't have that much experience with obviously using AS Victor since I don't have him. However, my overall feel of him is outside of AF, his damage will only be very moderate. And in that sense, he doesn't really support the team nearly as much with things like buffs, heals, or other things. So for example, in comparison, ES Molina can heal your party, can give your party speed and power, and obviously put type resistance debuff on the enemy, and so on and so forth. Now, I realize that ES Molina and Victor AS are different units. However, I just want to kind of compare what we're looking at in terms of helping to maintain or extend the AF bar. And so, my overall conclusions with Victor AS is such that if you have a great team already and you really want to add this extra mechanic to your team, because let's be honest, there isn't anyone who does it end of turn super AoE wind slash that can do hundreds of millions of damage, except for Victor AS, at least to my knowledge, then great. I mean, it really accentuates your top team 1 or 2 turn AF. However, if you don't have some of the aforementioned units, AE, like, for example, you don't have the Melissa or the ES Molina or even some top tier DPS, you might find Victor AS not nearly as useful in kind of adding power to your team. It almost feels like he's almost a specialist for the AF, and outside of that, not nearly as effective. So again, you can feel free to leave me some comments below if you do, have some additional information on how to use AS Victor. But my overall feel is mainly for AF specialty attacks for 1 or 2 AF turn AF kills. So, in my opinion, should you summon? Well, first of all, obviously, if he is a husbando for you, you can definitely consider summoning on him. I mean, this is a great way, uprated 2%, essentially 0.4, 0.8, 0.8 for any form of Victor. And if you get a 4.5 or 5-star normal, you can definitely save up the treatises over 3 to 6 months and get the AS Victor. Now, in terms of whether or not you're a free-to-play, you really have to ask yourself. Again, I'll touch on the concept again of, competing capital. Like I've mentioned many times before, obviously you have limited stones, especially as a free-to-play, and so your stones have to be saved for obviously the units you really want to add to your team. And obviously in the most recent banners, we've had AS Nakoko, Nakoko / AS Sukiya, we've had AS Tsubame, some people would like Garen Barrel, and obviously AS Hardy and even Pichika are coming up after AS Victor. And so, I've mentioned this before. On split banners, you're really looking at about 5k stones to give yourself around a 50% chance of getting the featured unit out of the 2 split banner units. If it's a single entity banner such as this one, you need about 4k to give yourself a 2/3 chance or 60-something% chance of getting that unit. And so, you really want to consider, especially depending on how many stones you still have left after the banners you just passed, whether or not you have enough for Victor, or if you're using Victor and using stones on Victor, then you may have to pass up on other banners, especially like I said, AS Hardy, which is our second Flash Strike stance user, for example, or Pichika, which apparently is one of the top support units in the game, especially in Japan. And I'm sure that a lot of us would like to add that second mermaid girl to our team. Now, one little story I'd like to add, if you don't mind, is that as you know, I do have another free-to-play friend and colleague. We work together, and I've talked about him on my channel. We actually come up with some ideas when we talk about things during work. And so we talked about AS Victor and how his viewpoint on AS Victor is compared to mine. So first of all, I'll give you a little bit of background. He doesn't have Victor in any form. We talked about whether or not he wants to add it, and he said, based on the most recent units banner-wise from before to in the future, those units we've talked about, Victor wouldn't be a top priority. And if you think about it, my friend had actually about 20,000 stones, and so his draft order for summoning was 5k in Nakoko, another 5k in Nakoko, yet another 5k in Nakoko, and then he's saving his last 5k for Pichika. So if you think about it, he was willing to spend multiple shots of 5k in the chance of getting Nakoko because of all the abilities that Nakoko can give. And now, again, I'm not comparing Nakoko to Victor because they do 2 separately things, but we're just talking about how we value the unit as to where we want to spend the stones. And so, unfortunately, Victor wasn't a priority. Not that he's not good, mind you. He is excellent. The problem is, again, competing capital, especially as a free-to-play, and so, if you don't have that many stones, you really have to choose who to get. And in my opinion, I think that Victor would be less useful overall than, for example, a Nakoko or a Pichika. Some people could argue that AS Hardy might be more useful, but so on and so forth. Now, on the other hand, as many of you know, I do have one form of Victor, and so obviously, if you have any form of Victor and you're free to play, you should definitely farm the treatises. Do not summon in any form. If you're a light spender, again, you can use your 1,000 paid stones, and if you want Victor, this is your best chance to get Victor. Don't get me wrong. You'll have a high chance of getting Victor since the Fateful and the regular stones banner can get Victor in any form. So if your budget allows you to try for Victor, definitely. However, if your budget is limited and you have to consider whether or not other units might be more useful or versatile for your team than Victor, then you may have to pass on this banner, being that he, like I said, is mostly an AF bar specialist. So anyways, let me know in the comments below, if you're going to summon on Victor, if you're holding off on Victor, and perhaps who are you saving for in the near future. I know that a lot of you have already left your comments as to what you're planning to do, and I've heard mixed comments. Some people are saving, of course. Some people are going to add for Victor, and of course, many of you who already have replied have Victor in some form, and so you're going to pass on this banner. And last thing I'll just mention quickly is the banner that includes the Lost Tomb and the Silver Unfading Flower. So this is a split banner with Cynthia as well as Hardy. It is an older banner, so note that you can't get a lot of the newer units. It's as aged as that particular side episode. So the newest unit basically are the 2, and then Zaviro, Radius, and so forth. So talking about units essentially 1 year old, okay? For those who don't know, Hardy is a fire zone setter. Cynthia can kind of play in any elemental zone, a different, or I shall say a slightly weaker version of Nikoko. Quickly speaking, I would opt not to spend on this banner unless you really just want to add units to your team that you don't have. If you want Hardy in the future, I'm sure that the Hardy AS banner would probably be a better use, especially since you can get a newer version of him. In the case of Cynthia, Nikoko is to be a much superior form of Cynthia, and so I would have saved my stones, or you can still do one last shot at the Nikoko banner while it's still here. Anyways, enjoy the episode. I'll be finishing it off and hopefully uploading a video of the dungeon sometime tonight if I can. And otherwise, it'll be another week and we'll get closer and closer to catching up to Japan. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.